The moment that ball sailed high into the Catalan night, I mean, you could feel the entire stadium just hold its breath. A penalty miss that, it should have been a psychological breaking point.
It really should have been.
But instead, it became the catalyst for Barcelona's most commanding and really defining performance of the season.
We are breaking down the La Liga clash where Barcelona rallied past a red-hot Atletico Madrid, winning 3-1 at the Spotify Camp Nou. And this victory, it really was a tactical examination, and they passed with flying colors.
It really felt like a crossroads, this match. It was shifted early for the Super Cup, and the stakes were just astronomically high. I mean, Barcelona was still processing that sting from the Champions League loss to Chelsea.
Still fresh.
It was. They desperately needed a statement to reassert themselves.
And they were facing a psychological mountain, let's be honest. Atletico arrived not just in form, but on this staggering, confidence-boosting 13-match unbeaten run.
They looked unstoppable.
Simeone's side felt structurally impenetrable. They were ready to exploit just the slightest hesitation.
And even with the reduced capacity at the reopened Camp Nou, you could feel that tension. It was palpable. And you felt that psychological edge immediately, as Atleti managed to strike first.
Of course they did.
Exposing that very well-known vulnerability in Barcelona's approach.
It was the high defensive line, yet again.
It always is.
But this was executed with such painful precision by Atleti. It was the 19th minute. Noel Molina delivers this beautiful, lofted diagonal pass. It wasn't just over the top, it was perfectly targeted.
Right into that channel.
Exactly. Between the center back and the fullback. Alex Baena, he times his run to perfection. Slips past Gerard Martin, who looked a bit hesitant,
Yeah, he did.
And he finishes calmly past John Garcia. It's the predictable cost of high-risk tactics meeting surgical timing.
That concession could have just deflated them. We've seen it happen before. But instead, it felt like an electric shock. That lead lasted, a mere 7 minutes?
Just 7 minutes.
And the response from Barcelona was immediate, it was authoritative, and it utterly changed the flow of the game.
The speed of the response was the real mental victory here. And you have to credit Pedri.
Oh, absolutely.
He delivered one of his trademark killer through passes. Just a pass of surgical precision that sliced Atletico's rigid defense completely in half. Raphinha was away, rounded Al Black easily, and slotted it home.
Raphinha was. He was the emotional engine that night. He didn't just score. His intensity, his, relentless desire to push vertically, it spread like wildfire through the squad.
You could see it.
I mean, Simeone rarely gives that kind of praise to an opponent. But the fact he was quoted suggesting Raphinha deserved Ballon d'Or consideration, that speaks volumes about his performance.
And that emotional intensity, it translated directly into a tactical benefit. Raphinha and Lamine Yamal on the other flank, who completed an astonishing 9 out of 15 dribbles.
9 of 15?
They were instrumental in disrupting Atletico's famed compact 4-4-2 block. That constant, aggressive width forced Atleti to stretch, and that's what created those central channels and half spaces for Pedri and Olmo to exploit.
Which takes us to the major turning point. A moment that, like we said, should have been a devastating psychological blow for Barcelona. But somehow, it wasn't. Just after the half-hour mark, almost fouled by Barrios.
Penalty.
A penalty. And a golden chance to take a deserved lead.
The stakes couldn't have been higher, and what followed was just an absolute anticlimax.
Robert Lewandowski steps up and blasts the spot kick high over the crossbar. It was just an appalling miss.
Awful.
And given his recent struggles, he's looked sluggish, losing duels, losing possession. This felt like the exact moment all that aggressive momentum might just hit a brick wall.
And yet, it didn't. And this is where the team's overall dominance just became undeniable. I mean, Lewandowski had a night he'll want to forget, a tough 5-10 rating.
For sure.
But look at the metrics. Barcelona generated 3.88 expected goals. Atletico, 0.97. They were so creatively overwhelming that they could absorb that huge penalty miss and still feel completely in control.
So that brings us to our first critical point then.
It does. Lewandowski's current slump isn't just about his finishing. It feels like a systemic failure to integrate cleanly into this high-tempo vertical buildup.
So what is the specific weakness you're seeing? How is it impacting the whole team dynamic when the number 9 struggles like this?
Well, Lewandowski's current movement profiles are actually clogging the high-value attacking spaces, and that slows down the vertical flow that's initiated by Pedri and Raphinha.
Interesting, so it's not just about the missed chances.
No, it's that he frequently drops deep to try and link play, and that pulls him out of goal-scoring areas and often occupies the precise half spaces where a guy like Dani Olmo or even Pedri wants to make a late run. That penalty miss is just the most visible symptom of a deeper issue.
Okay, that makes sense from a space management view, but if Flick just isolates him as a box finisher, doesn't that make Barca's attack incredibly predictable? I mean, he's known for his build-up contribution.
It's a powerful challenge. And the suggestion isn't to fundamentally change his role. It's to proactively manage his minutes and his movement against specific defenses. Flick needs to reduce his dependence on mandatory linking play and instead encourage it only when the opposition is compact.
Okay, so what's the improvement?
For improvement, Flick needs to implement a system where Lewandowski is substituted much earlier when his physical output is low, ensuring the system maintains its intensity.
Can you give me a concrete example? Like, how would that have looked in this match specifically?
Certainly. Lewandowski got that 5-10 rating after struggling for 67 minutes. He even failed to control that key pass from Pedri that Olmo ended up scoring from.
Right.
So instead of waiting until the 67th minute, if Flick sees that low efficiency earlier, say by the 55th minute, he brings in a dynamic runner like Ferran Torres. You maintain the pressure. The system doesn't stagnate waiting for the striker's form to come back.
You're benching the slump before it poisons the match.
Exactly.
Well, the pressure did eventually pay off, didn't it? The go-ahead goal came in the 65th minute. And ironically, it stemmed from one of Lewandowski's moments of poor control.
That's right. He failed to trap a sharp, vertical pass from Pedri. But Dani Olmo, who was already positioning himself perfectly, he was there to seize the loose ball. Fired a clinical low strike across goal, 2-1. It was a goal born from opportunistic aggression.
Olmo he thrives in those tight, high-pressure central areas.
He absolutely does. His efficiency in the half spaces, those zones between the fullback and center back, it was pivotal here. When Yamal and Raphinha stretched the defense wide, Atletico's central density broke down, and Olmo exploited that exact gap. He doesn't need a huge window.
But that exhilarating moment came at a massive cost. Olmo sustained a painful shoulder injury while scoring. He was immediately subbed off, and the narrative consequence here is, it's frightening. There's concern he could be out until 2026.
It's a catastrophic blow. It transforms a tactical triumph into a huge squad crisis.
A huge crisis.
It's devastating both emotionally and tactically. I mean, losing Olmo's unique ability to be a threat in those congested areas, it fundamentally limits Flick's ability to unlock compact defenses from now on.
Right, so let's get into our deep dive then. We have to talk about the tactical setup that allowed this dominance in the first place, especially since it was born of necessity. Frankie de Jong was out with an illness, so Flick makes this forced, but surprisingly effective adjustment.
Deploying Eric Garcia in midfield.
A center back in midfield.
It was bold, and it worked. And I think it worked because Garcia's profile is so fundamentally different from de Jong's. Garcia provided immense stability in that double pivot.
How so?
Well, unlike de Jong, who's always initiating those high-risk ball-carrying runs, Garcia is safety first. He was neat, he rarely lost the ball, and he ensured quick, simple ball circulation.
So the argument is that his simplicity actually helped the attack?
Exactly. His positional discipline basically freed Pedri from significant defensive duties. This license allowed Pedri to be the primary progressive force, to dictate the tempo. Garcia was the anchor, and it let the rest of the midfield just float and create.
And speaking of clarity, Pedri was he was the creative core. A 9-10 performance. He single-handedly negated Atletico's press. But is the system entirely dependent on him? Because we saw what happened when he left the field.
Oh, absolutely. You saw how essential he is when he was subbed off in the 74th minute for fatigue. The tempo immediately dropped.
Immediately.
Possession became less secure, and they started to lose that vital rhythm control, which invited that late pressure from Atletico. He is the central nervous system of this whole structure.
Let's pivot to the other side of that tactical risk then, which leads to our second critical point. Barcelona reclaimed their identity, yes, but the execution of that high defensive line continues to show a critical, exploitable flaw.
The backline is relying too heavily on athleticism and synchronization, and it's lacking vocal positional leadership, especially in those transitional moments.
Right.
The weakness is undeniable. Benia's opener shows the offside trap is still inconsistent. Gerard Martin looked isolated and hesitant, and it just highlights the pressure on the younger players in that high-risk zone.
This high line is clearly a philosophical commitment for Flick, though. He's going to maintain it. So if we can't change the philosophy, what's a specific, actionable fix?
The fix is to empower an experienced player to be the defensive pivot point. The backline needs to designate a vocal, positional leader like Koundé to override the younger players and mandate the defensive depth alignment.
So he calls the shots.
He calls the shots. And for improvement, the training needs to shift. Instead of just relying on the offside trap, they need to implement aggressive, synchronized step-up drills when the ball is lost high up the pitch, ensuring the defense compresses forward, not backward.
That makes sense. Push the responsibility onto the most experienced head in the chaos of a counter. Now, while Barcelona absorbed that late pressure, we have to talk about how Atletico failed to capitalize once Pedri stepped off.
They really did. Their attacking plan just eroded badly. They squandered their few counter-attacking chances with a real lack of composure. And Thiago Almada's late opportunity, that's the ultimate symbol of their collapse.
Spectacular, and then spectacularly missed.
Almada's solo run in the 79th minute was brilliant, but he just lacked the composure to finish into the open net. That miss, plus Griezmann being surprisingly quiet, it just allowed Barca's defense to hold firm.
And that brings us to the final, definitive moment. Deep in the stoppage time, Ferran Torres seals it.
That goal transformed a tough, earned 2-1 win into a definitive 3-1 statement. Balde marauders down the left wing, a brilliant late burst of energy, delivers a low cross, and Ferran Torres converts from close range, 95th minute.
And Torres has that history against Atleti, doesn't he? It just feels customary.
It does. His fourth goal against them. And the significance of that third goal is immense, not just for the scoreline, but for the whole narrative.
Absolutely.
This victory snaps Atletico's unbeaten streak and moves Barcelona 4 points clear of Real Madrid, at least for now. But more than the standings, this performance. The sharp pressing, the purposeful possession, it allowed Barcelona to reclaim its identity.
Which takes us to our final high-level point.
Right. While the high press delivered dominance, we have to assess the tactical cost of that commitment, especially with a busy winter schedule coming up.
So you're questioning the sustainability of playing with this much intensity?
The aggressive, coordinated high press, while effective, demands immense, non-stop energy, making the team extremely vulnerable to late-game fatigue-induced breakdowns.
You saw it when Pedri came off.
Exactly. The weakness is evident. The drop in tempo shows the press isn't a sustainable 90-minute weapon without some systemic adjustments.
So what's a creative solution to mitigate that fatigue while still protecting a lead?
Flick needs to integrate planned, mid-match systemic adjustments, like dropping into a defined mid-block at the 70-minute mark to consolidate leads, rather than just relying on substitutions.
A tactical shift, not just a personnel one.
For improvement, they could use a pragmatic shift to a 4-4-2 shape at that 70-minute mark, sacrifice some verticality for more central compactness and defensive solidity. It reduces the physical demand on the tired pivots.
So to summarize this demanding critique, we saw the sheer will of Raphinha, the essential clarity of Pedri, and a dominant tactical blueprint that bent but refused to break, even absorbing that massive psychological shock of Lewandowski's penalty miss. This was a critical statement win.
It really was. For Barcelona, they need to quickly formalize that Eric Garcia midfield blueprint. They have to address the potential crisis of Olmo's injury. And crucially, Lewandowski's movement and finishing remain the biggest systemic question mark against their otherwise dominant attack.
And should Lewandowski remain the primary penalty taker going forward despite that miss?
And should Lewandowski remain the primary penalty taker going forward despite that miss?
And how quickly can Atletico Madrid possibly regroup after having their long unbeaten streak snapped in such a dominant fashion? Subscribe now, leave your comments, and send us your own materials for a future critique.